Steven Jackson is the latest person upset with me. I know many of you all think I just run around picking fights with people. Actually, people run around picking fights with me and the NBA star, former NBA star, current co-host of All the Smoke. He's picked a fight with me, and I'll engage him in that fight today on Fearless. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Monday. Thank you for joining me. Awesome show planned for you today. Shemeka Michelle, Delano Squires, just around the corner. First thing you guys need to do is check out exclusive, extra Fearless content on blazetv. Go to blazetv.com/fearless. Use the promo code Fearless, and you can save $20 on your yearly subscription. Today, we'll have some extra content. Me reacting to Bill Maher's latest monologue, or what does he call it, New Rules, on his HBO show Real Time. I'll react to that. Bill's getting applauded and celebrated all over the internet because he finally is saying a few things that make sense. I'll have my reaction on Fearless Extra. Check that out. Today's episode, this episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers is locking in your price until 2026 when you subscribe to any of their boxes of 100% American meat and seafood. Use my promo code Fearless at goodranchers.com and save 10%. Thank you, Good Ranchers, and you guys make sure you thank Good Ranchers. Today, I want to talk about Steven Jackson, the former NBA player, NBA champion, now the co-host, one of the co-hosts of a successful podcast, All the Smoke, where he and Matt Barnes sit around high and talk to other NBA players and other people. It's a show that's meant for today's modern prison get high culture. I used to have Steven Jackson on Speak for Yourself when I was at FS1. We actually got along and we were rather friendly. Steve's from a different world than me. Steve's a member of a gang. Steve's, a pro athlete that likes to get high. And obviously he's part of the BLM movement. The George Floyd death overdose made Steve a bit of more of a national figure, and he sees himself as a spokesman. Again, I have a long, complicated, mixed relationship, friendship. Now I would think we'd have to be called on opposite sides of the spectrum. Steve doesn't like me. I could kind of care less about Steve, but I will talk about it today. But I want to start and give you the background. It started with Steve going after Gayle King because Gayle King supported or said she supported Caitlin Clark and wanted Iowa to win. She was rooting for Iowa over South Carolina. I want to play you first Gayle King interviewing Don Staley, where she makes a brief comment about, hey, the whole country, we were rooting for Caitlin Clark. This triggered Steven Jackson. Let's play the clip.
Happy for you guys, Coach Staley. So happy. The game was such a good game. It was so close at times. And in the end, you guys pulled it out. But was there ever a point during the game when you were worried? Because I got worried. We were all cheering for Iowa, of course, and Caitlin Clark. But for so many people, you've got their hearts. Was there ever a point where you were worried during the game?
So this is Gayle King speaking off the cuff in an interview with Don Staley, where she's basically trying to both sides of the issue. Hey, Caitlin Clark was the story. We were all rooting for Caitlin, but you had our heart. That's what she said. She's clearly both siding the issue. We're rooting for Caitlin Clark. It's a fun story, but you're in our heart. So I want to frame up Steven Jackson in this regard and what goes on particularly in the black community, media space, punditry space, or whatever. Steve is a correctional officer. That's the theme of today's show. Steve is a correctional officer, a CO. He's there to correct the thinking of black people who might think the wrong thing or who don't want to align themselves purely based on race. And I use the word correctional officer intentionally because correctional officers work in jails and prisons. And inside of jails and prisons, all the alliances among the inmates are based on race. Black dudes line up with black dudes, Mexicans line up with Mexicans, white guys line up with white guys, Asians, if they happen to be in there, they're kind of on their own, but maybe they'll choose a team, who knows? But as a correctional officer, Stephen Jackson's job, it's really what they've done because when slavery ended, there was no use for an overseer anymore. And so what they did was name people correctional officers. You run out and correct black people who think or say the wrong thing. You keep them locked up in this little prison that we have for them where their thoughts can exist and they can run free within this limited space as black people. And Steve, it's your job as a correctional officer, and there's a lot of correctional officers. He's not the only CEO running around the yard. Even someone like Matt Barnes, who I'm not sure, maybe is 20% black. I'm not sure what he is, but he's a correctional officer too. And so it's their job to keep black people trapped in a mental prison and give black people that prison mentality and prison worldview. You make all of your alliances based on race. And so that little brief comment by Gayle King, someone tapped on Steve Jackson's desk and said, hey, Mr. Correctional Officer, there's a Negro that's gotten out of line. Go over there and correct them. And so I want to play Stephen Jackson performing his correctional duties on Gayle King. This is SOT number 2. Play that.
So Gayle King's supposed to be somebody that's big in the journalism space, right? And I don't consider her black media. Y'all give her all these passes because she's Oprah friend. I don't give a who friend she is. They don't do nothing for nobody. But you cannot demean Dawn Staley like that. You talking to her about winning the championship, about going undefeated, and you have the nerve to get on there and say, well, we was rooting for Caitlin Clark and you broke everybody's hearts. Who is we? Who is we? All the black people I know was rooting for Dawn Staley. We all fans of Caitlin Clark, but the way you put it, that shit was trash. Yeah, and I'm glad it's a new day in the media space. You know what I'm saying? Because you so intelligent, you don't even say stuff like that to somebody on the interview. You just demeaned her and made it about Caitlin Clark. That's trash. It's super trash.
So I want to go back because maybe I'm mistaken here and Stephen Jackson and I heard two different things. And I'm willing to, maybe he's right. So I want to play the clip again. What I heard is you had our hearts. He heard you broke our hearts. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's start with the Gayle King, or let's go circle back to the Gayle King supporting Caitlin Clark. Let me see who's right and who's wrong here. Play the clip.
Happy for you guys, Coach Staley. So happy. The game was such a good game. It was so close at times. And in the end, you guys pulled it out. But was there ever a point during the game when you were worried? Because I got worried. We were all cheering for Iowa, of course, and Caitlin Clark. But for so many people, you've got their hearts. Was there ever a point where you were worried during the game?
And so what I heard was, and for so many people, you got their heart. So I want my team via text, in my ear, sitting in front of me. Who's hearing this right, me or Stephen Jackson? And play it again so we can all hear one more time. Play it again.
Happy for you guys, Coach Staley. So happy. The game was such a good game. It was so close at times. And in the end, you guys pulled it out. But was there ever a point during the game when you were worried? Because I got worried. We were all cheering for Iowa, of course, and Caitlin Clark. But for so many people, you've got their hearts. Was there ever a point where you were worried during the game?
For so many people, you've got their hearts. So, and I want to go over what a correctional officer is again, because this further proves my point. That, and I want to be careful because I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm sure there's some correctional officers that work inside those jails and prisons. Uncle Jimmy was a sheriff, which is basically a correctional officer, a sheriff in a town like Kansas City, Kansas. He runs the jail. He's a correctional officer. And I don't mean this in any way disrespectfully. But when you're a little kid and you're thinking about, man, I want to grow up to be a doctor, an NBA player, a lawyer, a journalist, an actor, whatever. Correctional officer is way, way down the list. And so the people that wind up correctional officers, and gentlemen, ladies that are correctional officers, I'm not trying to offend you, but limited people, you're not Ivy League graduates, Ball State graduates, Warren Central High School graduates, for the most part, aren't dreaming about being correctional officers. There is no minimum SAT score, minimum GPA. There is none of that. And so what ends up happening, very limited people that maybe just barely graduated high school, they certainly weren't on anybody's honor roll, end up being correctional officers. And hats off to you. It's no different. If you've listened to this show, it's like my support of factory workers. I'm happy for anybody and will support anybody that takes a legitimate job that benefits the community and isn't hurting anyone. But these aren't rocket scientists that are correctional officers. They're limited intellectually for the most part. And so Stephen Jackson can't even understand what Gayle King is saying. And so he puts out a video threatening. And this is, if you understand anything about a prison and how they operate, threats are how you organize and discipline and limit the freedom of inmates. You threaten them. And so keep in mind, Snoop Dogg did this to Gayle King a couple years ago and got in all kinds of trouble. Stephen Jackson, same mentality as Snoop, gang member, prison mentality, prison worldview. Hey, we've got an inmate out of line. That inmate, Gayle King, isn't just picking sides based on race. Let's go get a correctional officer, Stephen Jackson, to go get that Negro in line. That's all we're doing here. And so, Steve, hats off to you. You got a correctional officer's job. It's a good job. They pay you well at Showtime or whoever's financing all the smoke and whoever has established you as a pundit or talk show host that we should respect. You're there because of your limited intellectual skills, your willingness to be high most days, and your willingness to spread a prison mentality. Hats off to you. I somewhat mean this respectfully, but Steve's deal with Gayle King calls me to tweet out, not a personal attack on Stephen Jackson, but just factually trying to point out to people, and I did this 3 days ago. This is a prison mentality. Choose sides based on skin color, not values, We've normalized a prison worldview rather than a biblical worldview. It's sad. We don't even recognize the immorality and illogic. That's what I tweeted out. This triggered Steven Jackson. And he went back to video to, go off on me. So let's play that. I believe that's SOT number 3. Let's play Steven Jackson name calling me Uncle Ruckus, Jason Shitlock, all this. Let's play the clip.
What up, world? Usually I don't even respond to this cat, Uncle Ruckus, a.k.a. Jason Whitlock. To say that I'm rooted for Dawn Staley over Caitlin Clark simply because she was black is the dumbest thing to say. I was a big Dawn Staley fan. What number did I wear my rookie year? 24. The sad part is, you can't go a day without hating on black people. You nothing but a puppet and a brown noser for the hating minority part of the world. That's what you do. You give people confidence to hate. I guess it's not racist when the black man said, huh? And that's not being a free thinker or being free-minded. You just a sucker, and you've been a sucker. And you find a way to demean people to get attention. But nobody watch your show, bro. You're not a part of the culture. And I hate I even addressed you because you probably can't even hear me because you're somewhere breathing hard trying to get up the steps. Facts. We give Caitlin Clark nothing but love and we'll continue to. I have daughters that play basketball. We support the WNBA just like we support the NBA. Happy 420 to all my bud brothers and sisters out there. Coming up, you're going to start seeing me wear a lot of WNBA jerseys, and I will have Caitlin Clark jersey on. Whitlock, idiot, love for all who have love for all. We know how to support our people and be proud and black without demeaning the next race. You dig? You should try it. You have a good weekend.
So, Steven Jackson, smoking weed high, wearing his Colorado Deion Sanders outfit and gear, a lot of name calling there, but when you're limited, that's what you resort to. There's a reason why Stephen A. Smith went to name calling and cursing and screaming and yelling and never resorted to any facts. Stephen A. Smith, limited, very limited. Again, held back in 4th grade. Counselor told him in high school, laughed at thought of him going to college. Went to Winston-Salem State when you didn't even need a high school diploma to get into Winston-Salem State. All of these people are installed, and they're installed because they're limited. And they're qualified to be correctional officers and go out and correct the thinking of Negroes. That's what this is. Steve, I'm not going to sit here and call you a bunch of names. I have clearly taken some shots. I've called you limited. You are limited. You're someone that was paid to develop athletically. You're someone that joined a gang, and in your 40s, you're still very proud of being in that gang. Hats off to you. I'm friends with some gang members myself. They're not out there being supported by corporate America to talk and be correctional officers, but that's neither here nor there. Steve, I'm making an argument about what's been done to the mentality of black people and how people like you are used to control the mentality of black people and to spread a prison mentality among black people. It's your job to house and control the thoughts of Negroes. I sit over here and say to people on this show and everywhere I go, hey, there's another way to think. There's something called a biblical worldview, and it will serve you better than the mentality that the correctional officers, AKA the overseers, are prescribing for you. Hey, I'm supporting people based on on their skin color. It doesn't work. It works inside of a prison where men are sexually fluid and men get violated and they have no real freedom. It works inside of a prison. But if you're outside of a prison or inside of a prison, trust me, a biblical worldview will serve you better and will actually lead you to a positive place, rather than adopting a prison worldview, which will lead you to prison and will cost you your freedom. That's my argument. I can have this argument without calling you a bunch of names, be more than happy, and I'm not even sure, honestly, if you can follow what I'm saying. But I'm more than willing to have this discussion with you. And that's what I'm trying to do here today. Instead of attacking you viciously and just meeting you with all the name calling, and trust me, I call names and come up with nicknames. I'm calling you a correctional officer. I do all of that stuff with the best of them. I'm very capable of playing the dozens. I'm not afraid to play the dozens. I really don't care about the Bloods. I don't care about you shooting up strip clubs. I don't care that you have a gang member's mentality. Gangs are mostly for punks. And do you know how, I'm not talking about you specifically, but let's just talk in general. To be in your 40s and repping a gang and then putting out videos like the next one where you're shouting out O Block. That's borderline retarded behavior. And we're supposed to take you seriously? The man just went off on Gayle King saying she was wrong and all black people, everybody black I knew was supporting Caitlin Clark or was supporting Don Staley. And I don't really consider her part of the black media. And then you circle back around and say, I wasn't trying to make this racial. I wasn't saying that you can't support whoever you want to support or support people on radio. Make up your mind. Can you even follow what comes out of your own mouth, let alone what comes out of Gayle King's mouth? 40-year-olds that are intellectually limited, they check in with O Block and take videos of it and brag about it because they're correctional officers and they're trying to promote a prison mentality. Steve, you don't have to do it. I know you flirted with the Muslims in the Nation of Islam. I know you flirt with Christianity. But what you're addicted to is a prison mentality. And you want other people to have a prison mentality. And all that comes along with the prison mentality, the sexual fluidity, the willingness to bend over and take it up the rear, to be popular, to get a rap deal, to be in good with Diddy and Birdman and all of that. That's what comes along with the prison mentality that you're promoting. Own it, cop to it, no problem. But don't try to act as if you're trying to spread something positive and Jason Whitlock is trying to spread something negative. I want to play the clip of Steven Jackson checking in with O Block.
Yeah. A lot of y'all be at O Block pulling up, taking pictures. Where we at?
Tell them how they coming.
We're in the middle of it. I mean, y'all pull up and take pictures and y'all not allowed to.
They sneak.
And one thing about it, if you're a real one, you don't mind checking in.
Checking in. What'd you say?
I check in with the real one. That's why I'm in the middle of O Block.
Where you at?
You see the hoop?
Where you at?
I'm in the middle of O Block. Man. Listen, man.
Middle is bitch where the people's be, you know what I'm saying? Where the real people's be, man.
Shit you can't pay for.
Rap count, man.
No rap cap. Shit you can't pay for. Me, we really out here. O Block, Chi-Town. Rest in peace, King Bone. We in the middle of O Block, ain't we?
64.
Quit playing, man.
65 to be exact.
I'm everywhere, you never there.
That's 40-year-old something man checking in with teenagers who shoot and kill each other in Chicago and bragging about it. He's not there telling them, hey, look, man, half y'all gonna be dead or in jail very shortly. Half of y'all gonna be getting violated in prison very shortly. Y'all should cut this out. I've lived long enough to know there's a better way. That's not what he's doing. He's a correctional officer. He's trying to correct the thinking or promote the thinking of a prison mentality. Hats off to him. And if you're down with that, hats off to you as well. I'm not. This prison mentality that has seeped everywhere. I'm looking at Stephanie Mills, an R&B singer. She's upset with Gayle King. This prison mentality that we've all adopted, this prison worldview that we've all adopted. Everybody aligned based on skin color. This is Stephanie Mills, what she tweeted out. The media in this country shapes our opinions about people, whether we recognize it or not. It happens. For instance, we heard many headlines, stories, and images of Caitlin Clark. On the other hand, how many stories and headlines did we see or hear about Dawn Staley prior to her victory and even after? Though the ability to choose who to cheer for is certainly subjective. As a black woman, I just find it ironic that a black woman, Dawn Staley, made history. Yet another black woman, Gayle King, would publicly admit that she was rooting for the opposing team. When do we stand in solidarity is the thought that comes to my mind. What are your thoughts? Power. Hashtag Dawn Staley, Caitlin Clark, Gayle King, Steven Jackson. I want to be clear here. Trust me, Gayle King has a lot of this prison mentality as well. And she just said some things on camera, just trying to have a conversation with Dawn Staley. But Gayle King is rooting for Dawn Staley as well. But this promotion of, as a black person, you're required to root for Dawn Staley. This is preposterous. As a black person, as an image bearer of God, as someone who believes in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, we should be making our alliances based on shared values. Are your values in alignment with Dawn Staley, or is your skin color allegedly in alignment with Dawn Staley? Now, you can make up some lie like Steven Jackson did. I wore number 24 as a rookie because Dawn Staley did. That's a lie. And everybody knows it, but let me stay on point. Do your values align with Dawn Staley? Dawn Staley, at the Final Four stage, said she supports men competing against girls. She supports transgenderism. Are those your values? Can you think it's abhorrent to support the transgender movement, particularly in sports? Could that be an issue for you in terms of who you're rooting for? Because you don't share those values and you don't want to see someone empowered in women's sports who wants men to be able to compete against women. Steve, are you capable of thinking on this level, asking that question to yourself? Let me give you another one. For this doesn't apply to Steve because he thinks that way, but Dawn Staley has done several things that paint her as racist. At the top of that list would be the way she smeared BYU students over nothing, over something that was proof false and over nothing, and canceled a game at BYU because some Duke volleyball player said someone shouted a slur at her at a volleyball match. That was racist on Dawn Staley's part. And some people don't like racism, no matter which direction it flows. And so maybe they have a problem with Dawn Staley on that regard. Or maybe when Dawn Staley smeared the Iowa basketball coach who said rebounding against South Carolina is like a bar fight. And Dawn Staley said, oh, that's racist. And somehow lumped it in with someone calling her team monkeys and thugs and all. She trashed the Iowa basketball coach for no reason. And people saw it in real time I was like, man, I don't like Dawn Staley. I'm not rooting for her. Do your values align with Dawn Staley? Or does it feel like maybe Caitlin Clark has done nothing at this point that violates your values? I don't know what Caitlin Clark stands for. All I know is she's an exciting basketball player. She knocks down three-pointers like Steph Curry, and I've never seen a woman do that. And so she hasn't violated any of my values, and she plays basketball in a way that's very unique. And let's throw it in there and just be honest. It's a black sport, and this little white girl is dominating. It's like the underdog or something unexpected, the same reason a lot of us fell in love with Tiger Woods in golf. We hadn't seen anybody that looked like him dominate golf. We haven't seen anybody that looks like her dominate basketball to the degree that she was. So, Caitlin Clark, best I know, she's heterosexual, has some boyfriend. She went to a Catholic school, comes across like she believes in Jesus Christ. I got to give Dawn Staley credit, and I did. She starts talking about Jesus, my ears and eyes perk up, and I go, oh, maybe we have that in common. But when you toss in the transgenderism, I'm like, what God is Dawn Staley talking about? And her little open hostility towards white people and BYU students and the racism she displayed. Like, what God is she talking about? But we should be choosing alliances based on values, not on skin color. The skin color thing doesn't work. Look at white people. Do white people not hate Donald Trump? Do white people not hate Hillary Clinton? See, they're free. They're not in a prison. They don't have Stephen Jackson running around as a correctional officer trying to keep them enslaved to only one way of looking at the world. They're free. And some of us would like to be free and be able to think whatever we want without having a correctional officer coming by. Hey, ninja, you're not allowed to think that. You must conform to a prison mentality. You must support transgenderism. You must support everything the LGBTQ's got going on. If 3 gay lesbians start some Black Lives Matter movement and stuff their pockets with millions of dollars, you must support them. If George Floyd overdoses on fentanyl, you must believe the white police officer killed him. I want to be free to think whatever I want to think, to follow the truth wherever it leads me. You want me in prison because you're in prison. You're a correctional officer. You got to go work inside of a prison every day. And you want everybody black in that prison with you. I don't want to be in that prison. Other people don't want to be, Stephen. Let us think whatever it is we want to think. If you want to go along with the sexual fluidity and all that goes along with prison, have at it, bro. Take as many inches as you want. I don't want any of it. That's my fire starter for today. Delano and Shemeka, I'm going to get their takes on this as well. Before we go, I want to talk to you guys about preborn. Abortion has been the greatest sin in our history as a country, and it happens every single day. And unfortunately, overturning Roe v. Wade was only the first step in a long list of steps towards eventually cleansing our country of that horrific stain on its conscience. The Ministry of Preborn empowers young expectant mothers in crisis to choose life. Preborn has rescued hundreds of thousands of babies' lives through ultrasound. When a woman considering abortion visits a preborn center, She gets to hear her baby's heartbeat and meet that precious child on ultrasound, and it's a divine encounter. The majority of the time, she will choose life for her baby. I'm proud to be affiliated with an organization that's not only working to save lives, but is succeeding. Preborn has a passion to save unborn babies from abortion and see women come to Christ. Over the past 15 years, preborn centers have counseled over 450,000 women considering abortion, and over 200,000 babies have been saved. Those are amazing numbers, but let's do more. Will you help rescue babies' lives? To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say the keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/fearless. All right, Shemeka Michelle, next. Hello, Fearless Army. I'm Jason Whitlock, your leader. I'm going to spend 2024 discussing growth and sacrifice. Hard times are here. Harder times are coming. What has stopped American growth and caused a regression in fundamental freedoms and values? A lack of sacrifice. Our ancestors sacrificed for our benefit. We have not sacrificed to protect the progress they died for. No sacrifice, no freedom. What impedes man's willingness to sacrifice? His ignorance, his perversion, his pride, his ingratitude, and his cowardice, his rejection of God. The Bible is a story about the power and the necessity of sacrifice. Sacrifice is the sun, rain, and fertilizer of growth. Growth is our life purpose. Grow in the knowledge, wisdom, fear, obedience, and reverence to the Most High. Growth requires sacrifice will be our theme for Roll Call 2.0 this summer, June 1, right back here in Nashville. We're excited to welcome you. Let me spend a minute explaining what GROWTH actually stands for us in the Fearless Army. The G is for game plan. In order to properly grow, it's essential we work from the strategic game plan spelled out in the Bible. The R, responsibility. As we grow as men, we understand and accept our responsibilities to God, family, and teammates. The O, ownership. We embrace ownership of our destiny. Outsiders do not determine our fate. The W, wisdom. We honor, value, and share the wisdom imparted to us by elders, coaches, and leaders. The T, trust. We must be worthy of trust. The reliability of a man's word defines him far more than popularity and material possessions. The H, humility. The reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. That's straight from Proverbs 22:4. Come join us in Nashville as we talk about growth and sacrifice and how without sacrifice there will be no growth. Roll Call 2.0 right here in Nashville, Saturday, June 1st. All right, welcome back. Shemeka, welcome back to the show. I'm sitting here shocked how this Gayle King thing even became a controversy. But it has, from Stephanie Mills to Stephen Jackson. This woman was clearly trying to cover both sides. Hey, we were rooting for Caitlin Clark, but you had our hearts, and somehow this is a betrayal of Black people. What are you seeing here? What is this about?
Jason, I'm sick. And I'm sorry, I know you don't like that word, but Justin told me I get one a week. So I'm coming out the gate on a Monday. I am so tired of this thing that Black people have, feeling like you have to stand with someone just on skin color. When we went into the championship game, the girls went into the championship game, I really did not have a favorite. I didn't care if Iowa won or South Carolina. I'm not a basketball fan, and I'm certainly not a girls basketball fan. Let me say that. I really didn't care. But when Don Staley could not answer the question to agree with me and how I feel about men being in women's sports, I decided right then I'm going for Iowa. And people were so upset because they felt like because she was Black, regardless of her beliefs, I should side with her because I'm Black. And that's just stupid to me. I don't believe that XY can become XX. I don't believe that XX can morph into XY. I believe men should stay out of women's sports. And so anybody that says something differently, I'm against. I would go against my mother who birthed me if she did not stand on the side of my values. And so that I feel like we fall for anything because we don't stand for anything. The idea that I got to line up with somebody because of the color of their skin is stupidity to me. And I hate that we as Black people think that that's the way it's supposed to be. I've had so many people just this weekend saying, well, the Asians and the Hispanics and, they do it, bringing in economics and all. I'm talking about sporting events. I watched Steve Kim and Mario Lopez say that Devin was going to win the fight. They didn't say he was going to win because he was Black. And I didn't see Mario Lopez saying, no, you got to go for the Hispanic. I bet on the Black man who lost because of his record and because sports, these boxing commentators and my friend who is a boxer said Devin was the best person to go with. It wasn't because he was Black, though. It was he had a good record. And so I'm so tired of Black people just feeling like we have to have groupthink based on skin color. It's dumb.
What's dangerous about it, not just dumb, is that leftist Democrats have figured out, like, if you package something Black people will embrace it and support it no matter whatever it is. So if you package transgenderism and the alphabet mafia and gay and all that, if you package it Black, we'll support it. There's nothing Black that we won't support. O.J. Simpson may have murdered 2 people, but he's Black, we'll support it. And it's just that simple. And so they have clearly draped everything, covered everything in Black packaging. Oh my God, let's make a music that calls for Black people killing and shooting each other and disrespecting their women, but let's call it Black culture, and Black people will never figure out, no, that's actually satanic culture. That's actually KKK culture you're supporting. But since we labeled it Black, you'll call it the greatest thing in the world. And so, I mean, one day, and maybe we're not that far off, they're going to do a TV show, and maybe they'll do it with this Good Times commercial or Good Times cartoon on Netflix. And they'll say, you know what? The Blackest thing you can do is poop on a dinner plate and eat it. And we'll sit down and start, everybody Black, sit around the country like, yep, I'm eating my own doo-doo, and boy, is it great. It's Black culture.
You're absolutely right, because that's how crazy we are. And we like simple, shallow virtue signaling. That's why so many people got behind the whole Ancient Mama thing, the Uncle Ben's thing, the Juneteenth, the Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. You worried about Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, but you don't have no money in your bank account. That's silly to me. It's dumb. It's virtue signaling, and they give us these smallest little things to celebrate, and we don't even realize where, you want to talk about group economics, you want to talk about doing things as a group, then we should have never been licking the behind of Martin Luther King wanting integration, because segregation would have forced us to actually build some things on our own, because we wouldn't have had anybody else to lean on or depend on. You would have had to go to school to be a doctor because we would have needed those in our community. You would have had to go to school to be an engineer because we would have needed those. We wouldn't be sitting here pushing rappers and basketball players as the top of the black chain because we don't need those. So if we really cared about our people and advancing as a group, we would stop worrying about being accepted in white spaces and stop spending every day worrying about what white people think. Because guess what? If you didn't like Aunt Jemima on a syrup bottle, you would have had your own syrup. You would have had your own rice if you didn't like Uncle Ben's. You would have had your own stuff opposed to sitting here whining about what white people do every day. There is no advantage to that. None at all. It's a waste of time.
You just made a point about integration that I've never thought of, and I've thought a lot about integration and how forced integration has damaged black people. But I've never thought about it the way you just did. The only word I would disagree with you is you said we would have built our own. And the only thing I would have said different is we would have maintained our own. Because when there was segregation, we had those things. My mother grew up in a neighborhood. There was a doctor around the corner. There was a dentist on the street. There was this, there was that. And we would have maintained those things, and we would have required our young people to be the successor of those things. But when you go off into this integration, well, I don't have to do it because there'll be some white man that can be my dentist. There'll be some white man that can be my doctor. And even as men, I'm just thinking this through in real time because I'd never heard your perspective, and it's profound. But there's a lot of success, and when I say a lot, but there's enough successful black men that we would have maintained our women if we were limited to our women. But because we have all these different options, we can be passport bros, and we can go date a Puerto Rican, white girl, Asian, whatever. We're less interested in maintaining our women. And without us trying to maintain them, they're out running wild. And now we don't want them. Because it's just like, I don't want to be wrestling at home and, everything's. And so, man, you made a very profound point. I'm going to circle back to my silly point, which isn't really that silly. And so forgive me for reducing the conversation because you just opened up a can, but I'm going to reduce it back down to one that's a little more accessible or not accessible, but just real. And I'm not saying yours wasn't real, but I'm sitting here thinking about my doo-doo point, like that they really could convince us to eat doo-doo. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that. Chitlins. Just the way we eat chitlins, it's some of the vilest, unhealthiest. It doesn't taste good. But because it's in the tradition of blackness, we will stink up our entire house every Thanksgiving, cooking some chitlins and eating these chitlins that, again, we know the only time we really eat them is at Thanksgiving. And maybe at a family reunion, somebody will cook some chitlins or whatever. But again, we will eat literal poison. I know there's some Muslims out there. Yeah, there's bacon and all that garbage we eat. But I'm just, if we can think of chitlins as a delicacy, we're not that far off from going, and maybe for Democrats and for leftists, it wouldn't be our own poop, but I do think we would eat the white man's poop and call it a delicacy and say how blessed we are that the white man, the Jewish man, is allowing us to eat his poop. We'd be all for that.
You know, I like to go on record as saying I've been off pork for 30 years this year. So yay me. And I hope my grandma is not watching this episode because Jason, just a few weeks ago, she made chitlins and I was at her house, but also the heating and air conditioning man was there to check the system as she has them come out right before winter and before summer every year. And I was so embarrassed that he had to smell the stench of such stinking food. And I was there about to vomit. Like I had to leave. And I felt so bad because here recently, my grandma still had some chitlins that she could bring out the freezer. And she told my mom, well, I don't want to eat those because they'll stink up the house. And I felt bad because she's 90. At this point, just eat what you want, Grandma. I don't have to come over. But I can't believe that people actually think this is okay to just suck down all the time. My goodness. Grandma, I'm sorry. Eat your chitlins. You've earned it.
Thank you, Shemeka. Appreciate it. Great job as always. Guys, I want to talk to you about Jase Medical, just like it was back during the pandemic. Today, we're facing a drug and medical supply shortages in the United States. As of March, there were more than 200 drug shortages here, and it's looking like it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better. Healthcare experts have pointed to shortages, domestic production, and the Drug Supply Chain Security Act as trends to watch this year. You wouldn't think that things like this could happen in America, but we've been seeing it for literally years now. This is why you should have a Jase case. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All you have to do is fill out a simple form online and you'll have it there, ready in case you need it. There are dozens of add-on options as well, like EpiPens and ivermectin. Jase Medical is empowering people just like you to be able to take care of your family's health into your own hands. Check them out today. Go to jasemedical.com and enter the promo code FEARLESS at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code FEARLESS at jasemedical.com. Delano Squires, Professor D, next. I'm minding my own business. He started calling me fat bastard. And I came on this show and explained to you all, he's doing that to distract from the fact that he's under attack for attacking Max Kellerman.
It was like I was damn near doing the show by myself because we were oceans apart in terms of cachet. Well, how are you oceans apart from me if you're sitting right across from me 5 days a week for the whole 2 hours?
And he doesn't want to battle with Marcellus Wiley. And so he said, there go the real bad guy.
Let's say that's the bad guy.
Let me point a finger at Jason Whitlock. Y'all get up off of me. Jason Whitlock is the real bad guy. Go attack him. He's fat bastard.
Always root for my colleagues and contemporaries, not all of them. You know, not the fat bastards. I don't root for people like that. Y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. We ain't stuttering, but I won't mention that. I don't root for the fat bastard.
We came back on this show and said, oh, I'm fat bastard? Okay. We can have this conversation. Stephen A., I read your book. You're a fraud.
Oh, snap.
That's how things played out. Stephen A. Smith was in hot water, tried to use me as a distraction, and I opened up a can on him.
I'll open up an $8 billion can of whoop ass and serve it to you, and that's all I got to say about that.
That's what happened. Those are facts. Welcome back. Time for some Professor D. Delano joining us from Washington, D.C. Delano, let me first start with, are you familiar with Stephen Jackson's comments about Gayle King?
Yes, I am.
You've seen them yourself? I can replay them for you for context. And And then the other thing, are you familiar with what Gayle King actually said to Don Staley? Because Steven Jackson, has taken her completely out of context. She argued both sides. Gayle King actually said that, hey, we were all rooting for Caitlin Clark, but you had our hearts, or you were in our hearts, or something like that. She didn't say broke our hearts. She argued both sides. We rooting for Caitlin Clark, but you've got our hearts or their hearts, blah, blah, blah. So he took her out of context and all that. What do you think? I'm calling Steven Jackson a correctional officer. He's there to police us as a correction officer, make sure we all think and say the right things as black people. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think Steven Jackson's being disingenuous when he tries to say that the issue that he was raising was not about race, but more so being disrespectful to the person that you're talking about. I mean, in his video, he said, well, who's the we? He said, because every black person I know was rooting for Dawn Staley. So I wish he would have just owned that. Even when I heard Gayle King speak, it was a very soft we. It didn't sound like we, me, Oprah, Stedman, and the CBS crew. It sounded like a more general we, like, the whole country was rooting for her because people want to see her cap off an amazing season with a national championship. So I think and then honestly, the other part of it, I don't know how old Steven Jackson is. I figure he's pushing 50. For him to take to social media as if this is an issue that requires this much thought just seemed kind of strange to me.
So, not strange though, or not uncommon. My argument is that again, Steven Jackson and many others, they're there to promote a prison mentality. And when you're in prison, all alignments and alliances are based on race. And Steven Jackson, a proud member of the Bloods, checks in with Old Block in Chicago. He's there to promote a prison mentality, and he does that through racial idolatry and thinks that, like, no, black people are incapable of choosing sides based on shared values as opposed to just, oh, well, they're black, I must support them.
And let me add another layer to sort of complicate it, because I do think the most obvious layer is the layer of race, but I think a big part of it is also the layer of ideology, because the same people who say, oh, you're disrespecting a black woman by making that comment, if they're talking to Gayle King, these same people have no problems trashing a black woman like Candace Owens. They have no problems trashing a black woman like Condoleezza Rice, because to them, the two people who I named, their politics, their conservative leanings, center-right leanings, put them outside of the camp of blackness. And when that's the case, they have no problems, calling them coons and sellouts and bootlickers and caping up for white supremacy, so on and so on and so forth. So it's not even to say that there's this general disdain for criticizing, even though Dawn Staley wasn't criticized, for criticizing black women. It's, no, we need to put on the cape and defend certain black women who stand for certain types of values. And I think that's part of the problem that Steven Jackson is contributing to.
All right, so Dawn Staley's values are why I have a problem with her. And at the top of that list would be like, here's a woman supporting transgenderism, a woman in sports who's getting paid millions of dollars for coaching women, who's only prominent because she was a woman's basketball player. If she had to compete against men, we wouldn't know Dawn Staley's name. But right before, and again, I know she can't control what she's asked, but she can't control how she answers the question. Before that game, she says she's basically for males competing against women. And so for me, there were other things even before that I had a problem with Dawn Staley about, but that was kind of like a final straw. Like, I know who I'm rooting for, and it's not the coach who wants men out here destroying women's basketball.
And honestly, Jason, I don't even know. I would be surprised if there was any women's coach or female athlete currently playing or coaching today that would take a stand for common sense when it comes to this issue. My sense is that all of them are scared because what many people don't realize, and you and I covered this last year, Dawn Staley, Kim Mulkey, and the coach, I want to say of Virginia Tech, he's a black man, were all asked this very same question by Bill Rhoden last year during the women's NCAA tournament. And they all took similarly cowardly positions, I think it's happy. I want people to feel included, and I know what it's like to not feel included. So this is not a surprise, and I think this goes right in line with the Biden administration's changes to Title IX regulations, because Joe Biden has something very much in common with James Brown, that when it comes to women's sports, they both believe that this is a man's world. So that part of it with Dawn Staley is sort of baked in the cake, because I don't think any of these women, and I say this all the time, the women in sports and media and business who have for years said it's been a struggle to be a woman and to make it to the top of the mountain, the feminists in American culture have finally found a group of men that they can submit to. So in that sense, I don't know that Dawn Staley is that much out of the mainstream with her peers, because there's not one of them that's going to take that stand, not where they're actively playing. Martina Navratilova will, because she's retired. But anybody else, they're going to fold under pressure.
That's fascinating, because I forgot about, I remember our conversation about it and William Rhoden, but I forgot who all was involved in that. And so he asked Kim Mulkey and she danced on that question too?
Yes. During last year's tournament.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's I did not remember that. And so let me add another layer to this, different than what I had planned to talk about. But Angel Reese today, this morning, tweeted out, "Protect young women in sports." She just tweeted that out this morning. It's got 2 million views at this point. And I had to give Angel Reese credit last week, WNBA draft. That was a marvelous success where the overwhelming majority of those women presented themselves as women. And they were as attractive as tall women could possibly be that are athletic like them. And to me, that's a credit to Angel Reese. She's gone overboard with it, but she's made it cool to lean into the feminine, sexy side of being an athlete. And now to hear her potentially tipping her hat that she may be a baby Riley Gaines, like, holy Angel Reese, I may be back at it again. Like, Angel Reese is bringing a lot more to the table than I anticipated.
So a couple of things, Jason. I actually have a column up today on the Blaze on this very topic with the WNBA, basically echoing your sentiments, right? The WNBA needs to be more feminine and less feminist, right? They need to have Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark channel the spirit of Magic and Bird in the mid-'80s, like what they did for the NBA, and not the spirit of Hillary Clinton and Gloria Steinem. Because the thing is, if people want to see Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese make more money, more people need to come to the games. And people are not going to come to the games if they hate the players. And they are going to hate the players if you allow feminists to be the spokespeople for the league. So to me, I think, I hope, because this is always the issue. It's not the initial statement, because sometimes people say things. People say all sorts of stuff on social media. You have a thought, you go to Twitter, and you type it out. The question is always how will they respond to the backlash? And we saw Macy Gray go from telling Piers Morgan, I know what it means to be a woman. I've been a woman all my life, to telling, Hoda on Today's Show, well, being a woman is a vibe. That took 1 week. We seen them back down Michael Parsons when he made some comments about Brittany Griner and saying, hey, we left a Marine over in Russia. That's not good with me. Then he backed down. That took about 3 hours. So the question is not whether she'll make the statement. The question is she prepared to stand her ground, 10 toes down, all 6'4", and say, I'm a woman, I'm speaking up for women's sports, and that's what it's going to be. If she's willing to do that, then what you will see is all the people, and this is a different column I wrote for the Blaze, who criticize Emmanuel Acho for a light, delicate criticism of Angel Reese will now be taking the Acho position and saying, well, Angel Reese is transphobic. She's a bigot. This is not who we stood up for. You know, she's taking the wrong position. Soon she's going to be voting for Donald Trump. And you'll see the side switch. Because as I said, it's not just about race and sex. It's about a person being willing to be a mouthpiece for leftist, Marxist, progressive ideology.
Delano, if I had to bet, and I want you to, we're gonna go Dave Portnoy and lay some big bets down here. Angel Reese is not gonna back down here, and I'll tell you what, I think she knows it's about to rain on her financially for taking this stance. That she has figured out what I figured out like last week is like, oh man, she's a tastemaker. She is a legitimate influencer, and playing this feminine role is going to make her relevant and more money than this is like somewhat of the good of capitalism of like, she just had a year of name, image, and likeness business school at LSU, and she's figured out her brand. And this feminine brand is actually going to make money for her, and she will withstand this backlash. I don't think she folds, and I'd be willing to bet quite a bit of money she will not fold. What say you?
Well, Jason, I've never been a gambler, man, but if I was, I definitely would take the opposite side of that bet, and I would be glad to cash your check in about 2 months. At most, it won't even take that long, because the thing is, and what I've learned over the course of a lifetime, and even over the last coming up on 3 years, you know, rocking with you and the Blaze, is that the number of people who are willing to be a Jason Whitlock, a Clarence Thomas, Candace Owens doesn't even have the track record to this point. I'm talking about people who are willing to stand in the public square, Black people who are willing to stand in the public square, taking positions that the culture completely disagrees with, and willing to take the scorn, the hatred, the name calling, the loss of opportunities, right? The number of people willing to do that for an extended period of time, for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, is extremely small, extremely. She's going to have handlers. She's going to have PR reps. She's going to have media coaches. She's going to have all of the, I was about to say something. She's going to have all of the other women in the WNBA who play for a different team in their spare time, in their personal lives, all of them wanting to teach her a lesson, to haze her, and not, let alone turn her out. That's a different conversation. All of these people are going to apply pressure to Angel Reese, and the number of people that I've ever met or ever seen, particularly Black folk, and especially Black women, who are willing to stand up under all that pressure is extremely small. I mean, you could fill, you probably couldn't even fill a dollar van, you know, that got 13 passengers seating. Very small. So no, I would take the other side of that bet, and I would gladly cash your check in about 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, so just and this is fascinating. I want you to just think it through a little bit, and maybe you've already considered this, but what happened last week at the WNBA draft was not just all by happenstance. The league was in on that. Kathy Engelbert, she was dressed, the commissioner of the WNBA, she was dressed the way she was dressed intentionally. I think they had conversations all behind the scenes. We're going to put a very feminine face on this WNBA draft. We got the wind at our back. We're about to sell. Because all of these old school, like take a Pat Summitt, take a Kim Mulkey. They used to be we're called the Lady Vols. We're called the Lady Texters. They all were adamant. You know, Pat Summitt had a kid. She, you know, I don't know what she died as, but she was not homosexual Kim Mulkey is heterosexual, and all of them actually believe in this and used to stand firm on that. And again, you got a Martina Navratilova who's gay, and she's against the whole transgenderism thing. I just think the WNBA is in support of what I don't think Angel Reese is just going rogue here. I believe she's heard a message from the WNBA. We're going all feminine in our promotion. The Brittany Griner thing was a bust. They thought, we're going to bring Brittany Griner out of this prison and she's going to be this mega star, and everybody, they tried to push her, and ESPN was writing updates. Brittany Griner this, and Brittany Griner farted today, and it smelled like roses. News story after news story. Her team finished in last place, and no one cared about Brittany Griner. You can't sell that. You can sell what they marketed last Monday and what college basketball marketed with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark all year. You can sell women playing basketball that are actually women and proud to be women.
Well, I mean, you can sell it, right? But I think this is like, that the biblical parable about the sower sowing seed, right? What we're seeing is the seed dropping. We have no idea what type of ground that it's on, and only time will tell. And what I'm saying is, I think there's a similar dynamic playing out here with the WNBA, right? And I take, let's say I concede every point you made in terms of it being intentional. This is no different than what you analyze and criticize with respect to the Stephen A. Smiths and the Bill Maher's of the world, which is they're going to give the popular culture enough signaling to say, hey, we're reconsidering what the left has been pushing for so long. And then 30 seconds later, they're going to come back and reaffirm their progressive bona fides and say, well, but I'm not full Trump. I'm not going to go that far. I just think that we should reconsider how far we've been pushing things. And what I'm saying is it's quite possible. And I think the most likely scenario is that the WNBA is saying the same thing. They realize that the league has been way too political, right? Now, the thing is, you can't change the fact that the WNBA is full of 6'4" and 6'5" women. The only other place you're going to see such a large collection of women of that stature is on a volleyball court. And the volleyball players tend to have a different aesthetic. So you can't help that. But you can help being a political league. And the WNBA has been far more political than the NBA and the NFL, by the way, because they think that this is our way to get into the mainstream, to take a knee for Jacob Blake, to put on BLM shirts, to say vote Warnock. And they realize that's failed. So what they do, they'll wave their hands and say, oh, look, we'll put some actually, women who look like women up on stage while still sort of doing the same thing behind the scenes. Because the thing is, if the WNBA turns and says we want to rebrand as a more feminine league, what are they going to do about the, 35, 40% of the women who are out of the closet? The Elena Deladons and the women, the Brittany Griners and the women like that. What are they going to do about all of those women? Because they're not going to take that quietly. So no, I don't think that the WNBA is in the sort of midst of a full rebrand.
Here's what they're going to do.
Tell, though.
Here's what they're going to do.
Okay.
I got an answer for you. Here's what they're going to do. You have never driven a single rating point. This is a TV show. And Diana Taurasi, we appreciate all the points you scored. No one bought a ticket. No one turned on their TV to watch you play. We don't need you. And so Angel Reese, not even that skilled and doesn't really do exciting things on the basketball court. But people bought tickets and ratings jumped partially because of Angel Reese and her persona. Obviously, Caitlin Clark drove a lot of ratings and is bringing a lot of excitement. Breanna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Della LaDon, all the rest of you, Brittany Griner, see you. No one even will know that you're not here because nothing any of you do is very exciting or very pleasurable to the eye in watching sports. They're extras in a TV show, and we finally have a few stars on the way. and they've bought in. Camila Cardosa, again, presented herself. That's as attractive as you can be at 6'7", the way she's presented herself. Best you can do. She did. People will watch that. If I'm sitting there where they're actually happy being women. I don't care that they can't jump over the Sunday newspaper. I can't. This is below the rim, as I said. If they make a movie about it, it's going to be called Below the Rim. But this will work. What they've been doing won't work. See ya, and I wouldn't want to be you.
I think I agree with your sentiment. I disagree with your numbers. Imagine if David Stern, early 2000s in the Iverson era, said, look, all of these guys with the full sleeves and the cornrows and so on and so forth, this is bad for our image and bad for our branding. So see you later, guys. I mean, that sounds good, but the problem is if that's 40% of your league, where are you going to get the other people from? So the WNBA and the NBA do not have the same imaging problem. Let's just say in terms of sex and sexuality, right? Because I think that's sort of the unspoken thing there. Right, when Candace Wiggins a few years ago said she felt bullied as a heterosexual player, and they basically tried to say, "Oh, I never experienced that." Like there's a there. The number of domestic violence issues in the WNBA is something that an investigative journalist would have a field day on. People forget Brittany Griner again pleaded, I think, no contest to abusing. I think this was her first wife. So. The WNBA, a significant part of their labor base is part of the as you call them, the alphabet mafia. And thinking that you can sideline them, diminish their impact, or all out get rid of them is like thinking you're going to get rid of, the gay males in your hair salon and still have enough people to do a pressing hold on a Sunday morning. It's not happening because it's just too many people. This is not one or two individuals like in the NBA. This is 35, 40, 45%, even more. And those are just the ones that are out.
I think it's like 75% of the league, but there's there's a strong 35% that are out and present themselves. Look, some of those women on stage at the WNBA draft, they're alphabet mafia. The prettiest one, the girl from Ohio State. I was like, holy cow, look at her. Oh my God. Then I went and looked at her Instagram. Saw her and her girlfriend. I was like, are you kidding me? These Ohio State athletes should be embarrassed. Whoever the star of the Ohio State football team, I'm going to keep scanning over to the right. Oh, yes. She's in the white sleeveless deal next to Caitlin Clark.
I could have picked that up.
I was like, oh, that broke my heart. I mean, it just broke my heart. I was like, unbelievable. And you guys at Ohio State, you should be embarrassed that y'all let a woman pull that. But anyway, this was far more. I didn't expect it to go here, but thank you so much. Great job Jason. As always. Don't forget the Fearless Extra content that you can get by being a Blaze subscriber. You can catch me breaking down the whole Bill Maher monologue on trying to say, hey, we need to back up with sexualizing our kids. I tell you what that's all about on Fearless Extra. Go to blazetv.com, get a subscription. blazetv.com/fearless. Thank you. That's tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'll break my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I wanna